To this special Christmas edition of Policy and Equity Committee, the Policy Equity Committee of the year. And we're going to start with introductions, and we'll start with the man behind the curtain, Mr. Rob.
Rob Wilson, text.
Jennifer Wagner, the Treasurer and Chief Financial.
Gary Helpers with the congregation.
And I'm Kevin Johnson with the congregation.
Kareem Moffitt, board member.
Mike Roski, board member.
Eve Bolton, board member.
Dan Hoying, general counsel.
Stephanie Scott.
Awesome. And Phyllis Davis, who is the board's admin, will be joining us as well. Again, this is the final Policy and Equity Committee of the year. It has been an honor chairing this committee this year for the third year in a row. So thank you all. Thank you, Dr. Moffitt, and thank you, Ms. Bolton. We've done a lot this year. So we're going to dive right in. We have a few policies to discuss today, but before that, we have some friends here to request an alcohol waiver. So I will turn it over to you all.
Push here.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, many people know of the work of Jehovah's Witnesses in the community. We're with the Spanish congregation, very close to here on Gilbert Avenue. And once a year, we commemorate the death of Jesus. And in harmony with our understanding from the Bible, we imitate what he did the night before he died, where he gathered his apostles and he passed the bread that represented his body and the wine that represented his blood. So in connection with that commemoration, once a year, we invite people from the community, in this case, the Spanish community, and what they expect to see and hear when they get to our event is a approximately 30-minute discourse going back over what Jesus did that night. And then after that is explained, the significance of the wine, the significance of the bread, then those two are passed. And this is a ceremonial type of event. So everyone is encouraged from the Bible that as they're passing the emblems, both the wine and the bread, they should meditate on what they mean. So basically, they're passing these. On an average, there's 200 to 250 people. And we have one bottle of wine that we put into 4 glasses and then 4 plates with the unleavened bread. So, of course, the participants in the event, they don't come there thinking they're going to drink the wine or take the bread. They're going to meditate on what those mean. So essentially, that's it.
And this event is at Walnut Hills High School, correct?
That's what we're hoping to secure, yes.
Okay. And so they would need an alcohol waiver for this, right, or no?
I mean, there are other church organizations that have used our. I'm not sure, and it wouldn't surprise me that they have. I'm not sure this is how we've used alcohol waivers in the past, I guess would be my point. I haven't reviewed the application. I don't know whether they meet the other criteria that are required to use the facilities, but I wouldn't necessarily think that an alcohol waiver would be.
Okay.
Well, it's nice to meet you all, but it sounds like, but the other piece about using the facility is something else that wouldn't be our.
That's right. There's a application process. There's an insurance requirement. If there are costs involved in janitorial services or opening the building, security, all those are passed on.
And from what I understand, those involved in the application process, we were okay on all those. This was the last step that we had to take.
Yeah.
Can we just do it preemptively? Can we just do something?
Let me ask a question. Who said you needed the alcohol waiver? Did somebody from here say you needed it?
Let's see. I have some names. I have one name I'd forgotten, but Ms. Davis has helped me tremendously.
She's the best.
And then.
Okay.
If we misunderstood the purpose of the application, I'm not sure. If we'd have known that it was a part of a religious ceremony, I'm not sure I would have suggested
I certainly didn't.
Yeah.
I thought it was like a party.
Yeah.
No, I'm trying. I didn't know. I really.
No, and I agree. Like, I think there's a difference. Personally, I think there's a difference between wine during a religious service, and even after the service having, a wine and beer hour. I think that would absolutely require.
Absolutely.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
No, not at all.
Yeah.
No.
Okay.
The majority of it, as you mentioned, just the observance of it. So, it's not something where afterwards there's some sort of party or anything like that. No.
Ms. Bolton?
Yeah, since it is part of the ceremony, I wouldn't think that it would be required, and I think it would be inappropriate
Yeah.
for us to require something that's part of a religious
Yeah, I
ceremony.
agree.
However, I rather than take it to the whole board, if it's at least clear here, with the understanding that we don't believe it's necessary, but
Yeah.
we will pass it anyway,
Yeah,
rather
right.
than, and it doesn't have to go to the full board. And since, other religious ceremonies and events have occurred in our buildings, certainly there's no way to deny this. And as a former Holocaust educator, I never miss the opportunity to remind everyone that before Hitler came for the Jews, he came to the Jehovah's Witnesses and tried to eliminate them because of their only making an oath to God. So they're the first victims and the first heroes of that onslaught of inhumanity. So again,
We appreciate
distance
that
passed.
acknowledgement.
Very much.
Yeah,
Yeah.
in fact, there's a section in the Holocaust Museum
Mhm.
dedicated to our work and the stand we took, and in other museums also.
Because of the oath.
Well, while we're on the topic, if I may, as a proud descendant of Polish immigrants, there's been to all the museums over in Poland. You all are featured there's in the Uprising Museum in Warsaw, and then in Gdansk they have the most comprehensive World War II museum anywhere. It really starts with World War I. But so anyway, so
Yeah, I
Thank you, Ms.
visited.
Bolton. Yeah.
I visited Poland in 1989. I went to Auschwitz, and
intense.
it was a different world back then.
Well, 1989, you were right there.
1989. Yeah.
My uncle was actually this is going to go way off track, but my uncle Mietek worked at a brewery until he got thrown in jail for 10 years because he was standing with Lech Walesa throughout that entire process. I have a lot of neat stuff at home, like buttons and things like that.
Oh, wow.
So, but you were there right then.
Interesting history.
Yeah, no
We
kidding.
didn't know we had these things in common, did we?
no.
You need to go back. The Solidarity Museum and the
Oh.
World War II Museum in Gdansk are really neat.
I would love to.
Cool.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you all so
Thank
much.
you very
Yeah, well,
much.
thank y'all. Yeah.
And good luck.
I haven't got to meet you, yeah, even though you didn't.
So
You just need to be here.
you need a motion to accept it, even
Yeah.
so it gets to committee.
I'll move to accept the proposal from our new friends.
Thank you all so very
Okay.
much.
You're
for the
welcome.
time.
Thank
Happy
you.
holidays.
Thanks, y'all. Have a good one.
I'll be in touch.
Okay.
Bye-bye. Gotta stay warm.
Thanks, sir.
Yeah.
Yeah, enjoy your celebration. Yeah, thank you. For sure.
Later.
Oh,
All right.
with you.
Thank you for coming.
All right. That was cool.
Oh, yeah.
yeah.
I'm into
History
that.
lesson
Yeah, that was cool.
on a Friday.
So we have 5 policies to get through to round out the year. And if any of the 3 folks who are here want to talk to us, just raise your hand and tell Rob you want to talk and what you'd like to talk about. We'll give you a couple minutes at the end. But the first one is policy 2440, extended learning opportunities. Ms. Bolton had brought this up in the context of summer learning, which I thought was great. So we're going to continue the discussion today. And to do that, to see if the council's office has anything to say about this, or if we just want Ms. Bolton to sort of kick off the conversation again. But I don't know if there's any updates, Dan.
I'll start, and I'm glad our treasurer. I'll start, and I'm glad our treasurer is here because the treasurer's office always wants to know of any policy that has a financial implication. This has not been discussed with her, though I think the financial implication is modest at most. One part of the discussion last week about our summer school policy was that it had become, I think, antiquated in terms of what students we charge for summer school. The policy currently provides that students who are required to take summer school are also required to pay for those summer school courses. And I want to be clear, I think that's it was intended as a sort of punishment, that it was like if you failed classes and your child had to go back to summer school, you would also have to pay. I don't think that's, I can say, I know there are schools who feel that's not the right thing to do and probably have taken it on themselves to waive summer school fees. Other schools, I think, are still following this board policy. That was the discussion we had last week. The superintendent, I've spoken with her. She firmly thinks that's a policy that we should change, and so I've proposed changing it so that students who are resident students who are required to participate in summer school would not be charged tuition. I think there's still potentially non-resident students who are participating in summer school still may have to. There are times when non-resident students also, well, at least out-of-state students would have to pay tuition. Glad to answer any questions, but that's the only change we've made so far.
Thank you, Dan. Ms. Bolton?
Yes, I find it interesting that this is the only real reference or policy that pertains specifically to summer school, but based upon your advice, this is it. And there are several issues that I think I raised. One is the charging piece. I know we're not. I think the policy says we don't charge the 12th graders.
That's correct.
And I understand that. We also got information from the superintendent yesterday or the day before, I think, just by asking a question about what the CCIP is.
Mm-hmm.
Could you explain what the CCIP is?
I can. It is an ODE acronym that relates to a comprehensive continuous improvement plan. It is still a current plan that the district has to report on its progress, and part of that, as I understand, is offering summer learning extended learning opportunities. So, Jen. Yeah.
It's also the method in which we submit our budgets for each grant and have them approved, and then submit our cash requests, our reimbursements through. So it ties the plan to the finances, the reimbursements.
Okay. So I would assume I would keep certainly not charging 12th graders. I would also, obviously, we should have to and should keep that reference to that particular ODE piece.
Yeah, I was going to suggest spelling out the acronym.
Yes, sure. Thank you. That would help. Would have helped all of us 5 weeks ago or 5 months ago. That's good. I also I don't see where there is this opportunity that is, as you've referenced, Dan, where different schools get to have different rules.
Yeah, there's not. I mean, in terms of charging fees.
I mean, in charge in terms of summer school. I would much rather see a uniform policy. Mm-hmm. I also want to not see references that unless it is dependent upon place of instruction, which would mean perhaps SCPA or Woodward, or if it's a trip that's associated. I'm trying to think. I do not believe that it should be the only way to take summer school is in person. I think that's an unfair burden, and I don't think summer school, as we've now started to talk about, not just required summer school because somebody might be failing a course. We have now millions of dollars that we spend on summer school itself, whether it's the enhancement stuff or whether it's instruction, whether it's we are wanting to do in-person versus remote opportunities. I mean, I can see some justification regarding 7th and 8th graders, but considering how many courses are attained, just looking at SCPA, are attained online during the school day, I think this has to be kind of reimagined. Not only for financial and instructional reasons, but also because I see it as placing some unfair burden on some students. And I don't like the great variety, even though I'm into equity, the great variety of how each school handles it. I think that doesn't make sense if you have a board policy, unless we're going to say, hey, schools, you can do whatever you want to do or whatever. I also think that the policy needs to have some special dispensation because, as I have mentioned, and the superintendent knows this, and general counsel knows this, and I think my colleagues on the committee know this, there have been students that have been removed from some schools because they could not attend the summer school. And from a standpoint of where that is a question, I think that's particularly unacceptable when people are told that it's non-negotiable. I worry about our use of that word right now in our own governance. I think that's sort of a unique way of looking at things. So I do know of people that have been removed because of their illness, because of an internship, because of a family hardship. And I think that's unacceptable. And I think we probably want to include some range where you're talking about, can you pass? Are you meeting the criteria for, whether it's the third grade reading or whether it's passing the state tests or something? There has to be some kind of reference. So I'd like to see this come back as one policy for the whole district. And I think that much of it is extra service and extra pay for instructors. I think too, unless we're able to offer some aspect of transportation to some, then I'm not sure we should be having in-person summer school. So I would, if it pleases the committee, I'd like to see a complete rewrite of this and talk about all extended learning and summer and create a policy, because we are spending millions and millions. And very frankly, it's now even on our enhancement and our wonderful summer scholars. When we look at the people participating in summer scholars, it is disproportionate as well and may not actually be serving the very students that probably need the service in extended time. So I think there's a lot to research and to have it be time sensitive as that happens. I'd like to know how much it all costs, the big picture. I'd like to extend the concept of the summer school is not just the required in order to make grade or make credit. And I think that, and I don't like to see the differences among schools unless it's a matter of place where they physically have to be there. This is 30 years old in its own way, considering what kids can be doing during school or the demands of being able to not be a full junior, but still be within your junior class, which is what basically the suburbs do until you have made up that additional credit. This idea that you're frozen in time, all those things are quite arbitrary to me. So I'd love to, if it's possible, to see a rewrite.
Yeah.
We could react to.
Dr. Moffitt, you have a reaction to that?
So I'll try to be a little bit briefer. I think we need a rewrite for different reasons, some of which Board Member Bolton and I agree with. But I think that the policy as it's written is not regarding our equity policy at all. I think that, first of all, adding fees to attend is inequitable because people can't afford it. And so we did remove it, and I get it. But I think when we require fees, when we talk about that on any level to any students, whether we take off the seniors or not, I think it's that pushes up against that. What I would like to see, which is currently not in existence, is uniformity across the district. If a student is a Wanna Hill student and they need English 1, that English 1 should be able to be taken by anybody across the district. And that's to Board Member Bolton's point. There's inequity in the courses being offered and the accessibility of the courses. So English should be consistent across our district, and it's currently not. History 1 should be consistent on some level across our district. And what I would like to even envision is if a Withrow student needs freshman English, they should be able to take that at another school and not be penalized for that, or it should be the same. And they if I just think that there's not consistency. I'm just thinking like that. It's not consistency across our district in the course, in the courses being equal or accessible to other students across the district. I think that also I almost wonder, how are students with IEPs being handled with regard to summer school? That's a concern with me. I just think that this policy as it's written doesn't address the specific needs of our population pre-pandemic, but particularly post-pandemic. It was revised in 2012. My oldest son graduated in 2012. He's going to be 30. It's ridiculous. We need to be more up to date and applicable with the times that we have. We know that our students need remediation. To have to pay on any level is not fair. If we're talking about transporting them, then to me that's kind of inequitable. What if they can't get there? So if we offer it online, are Withrow students or Euler students only allowed to take Euler freshman English? Why is that? Why can't freshman English be consistent across the district? So those are just some things that I am actually looking at in the rewrite of it. Definitely no fees, definitely uniformity across the curriculum, across our district. To me, that's equity, being able to have the same offerings across. Yes, ma'am.
Just to clarify, so you're saying no fees regardless whether they're residents or not?
Well, I think that's what I would say, because it infringes upon the equity policy. We have students who can't afford what I am seeing. Let me just put it like this. What I am seeing is we have students who can't afford the fees, and it's being the fee for summer school, and the administration is saying, okay, well, we'll put it on your student fees. Well, then they get to student fees before graduation, and then they can't afford it. And when you go backwards, it's summer classes. Some of it is summer classes having been on there. So then people have to come up with a huge amount of money so that their kids can graduate. That's what I'm talking about.
And I'm not questioning that. And what I'm questioning, we don't get any revenue for non-residents.
Correct.
So we charge regular tuition to
Which we
non-residents.
should.
Well, the non-residents, yes,
Okay.
then they should have to pay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes.
That was my
But my question with that is what's that number? Because certain schools are pulling non-residents. So I would be interested in the data of, do those students, how many non-residents have to go to summer school, and are they actually paying? Because I don't know if non-residents are really paying to come to our schools. I don't know. And again, if we're going to open up the can of worms, and we're just going to open it all up. And I wonder how many non-residents are paying. How many are there? Are they paying? And then for the summer school piece, how many have to go to summer school, and are they paying for summer school? So that's just we can open up the non-residents piece, but I just think that there's non-residents that don't pay.
Yeah, I got you. Go ahead, Ms. Bolton, and then I don't know if superintendent or council want to respond to any of Dr. Mawa's concerns after that, but I'll obviously give you opportunity.
I would. I'm going to be making some requests for some information about summer school and the students, the numbers, that kind of thing.
That's fine.
How many people have been removed or what have you. But we'll make that as we would normally do, not part of the committee. But I do agree that the pre-COVID versus post-COVID is a big bridge, a big difference. From a standpoint, we have now spent great amounts of money regarding creating an infrastructure that would allow our students to have more access to credit recovery, more access to instruction via electronic media, but more particularly as we are increasing what I think to be the rigor and the authenticity of our instruction across the district. These are things that should impact and allow summer school, be it required or be it enhancement or be it somehow some other aspect to be re-envisioned. And I don't think it needs to be at every single school. I don't think it needs to be as we have had it. And I am really, as the superintendent knows, remain very concerned about some students, particularly at Walnut, that have been removed from Walnut when they were unable to do something in summer school in person, when it was only to make up a quarter of geometry or when they couldn't do it because they actually had health issues that I can't discuss in public. It's unacceptable. Nothing's so magical as to think that that's useful for our families or students. Many of our families need their teenagers to be working.
Any responses from administration? Then we'll move on.
I think that we will take all of the feedback that we've gotten up until this point. Much of what I have heard in terms of feedback, I definitely concur with. I think that I do believe that we need some opportunity for students, during the summer, especially those that are working to graduate. And so I think that we do have situations where where all of our students are not making up the credits that they need during the school year. And so giving them the opportunity to get caught up during the summer, which makes it more specific to our high school students. I think that there is a space for that. I think the second thing is I would also concur, and that's something that I've shared with the board, the treasurer, and I've talked about it as well. The current way that we do summer school in every one of our buildings across the district, it's just not the most efficient use of time, space, or resources. Mm-hmm. And so that is going to be it's just going to be a new learning, because I think that that's just what we've always done. And so that's something that's just been, just the way that we've done business. And the third is with the technology that we have right now, many of the students attend summer school to then work on the courses online in terms of Edgenuity. And so we really also have to determine whether or not Edgenuity is going to be the resource, whether or not we're doing direct instruction during the summer and that's the resource, so that we really know across the board that we can have alignment. To Dr. Moffitt's point, I agree 100%. English at one school should be English at another school. So it's not where you have to go to this particular school. Knowing also that our students currently are traveling across the city to go to their schools during the regular school year. If there is a school that is closer to them and it's a site that we're doing for summer school, that's where we want to be able to have our students as well. So we'll take those things into consideration. As we talk about resident students here, we are talking about students that are not enrolled in the district already. So we know that we have students that are not in Cincinnati proper, but that are enrolled in some of our schools. When they're enrolled in our schools, then we do receive the funding for those students. So those students are considered our students. When we're referencing non-resident students here, we're talking about students that are not enrolled in our schools during the regular school year and just want to attend for summer school. So those would be the students that we're talking about in terms of funding. And we would have to do some research to see how many there are of those students. My suspicion is that there are not many, because I don't know that we've had a consistent process to monitor that. So we'll take it back, make the updates, and then make sure they return.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, the only thing I was going to add, Dr. Moffitt mentioned the students with disabilities. So it has always been a part of our summer programming to provide services for students who qualify for extended school year. Even in years where we have pared down our summer school offerings, there are still students with disabilities who participate. They've never been charged. They aren't allowed to be charged fees. They are provided transportation. They're required to be provided transportation. So we can add that, but that's always been a part of the summer program.
Thank you.
Awesome. Well, thanks for bringing this up, Ms. Bolton. Thank you, Dr. Moffitt. Thanks for all the comments. And yeah, it sounds to me, if I heard everything right, and I have nothing to add because everything's been said. It sounds to me like it's not a rewrite. It's like a whole new policy. We can use the same number and everything, right? Yeah. But great. Thank you all very much. Now, this next policy, 5410, is one that has been in this committee a few times. It would be cool, in my opinion, if we could maybe get this before the board before the new calendar year. If not, it's okay. And then next year's policy team can pick it up, whoever those people may be. This is a really important one, a lot of opinions. And so I kicked it to Ms. Bolton first last time. So let's see if Dr. Moffitt would like to go first this time on promotion and retention, because I know of at least one issue very close to Dr. Moffitt's heart that she'll want to bring up. So let's see if I'm right.
I'm going to go second on this one,
only
because I know that President Sellers sent us information You got that too.
Yeah.
And she wanted it included. She couldn't be here today. I do think we need to include and incorporate teacher perspectives with this, but I'm going to go second. I'm going to let Board Member Bolton serve this up.
Board Member Bolton.
I first of all, I'm glad that we divided the longer policy up. I think that was critical to do so. I don't know that we are ready to do what we must do ultimately, which is decodify social promotion from board policy. And this really does, and some of the other parts of a couple of the other items in this package deal with that too. So that's what I would suggest. I don't think we can, Mr. Chairman, pass this unless administration or general counsel is able to address how this needs to be more in keeping with state and ODE requirements, or how it needs to address district-wide similarity. I'm not sure we can work through this. I'm much more comfortable looking at academic acceleration.
Great.
And the individual graduation kind of policy than this retention and promotion. I think that still needs a lot of discussion.
It's fine with me. Dr. Moffitt?
I think we need to wait. I just do. I'm trying to be nice and be brief in my comments because I can get a little long-winded. Not as long-winded as Board Member Bolton, but I can get a little long-winded. So
That's because I have so much knowledge.
Is that what that is?
I couldn't resist. And I'm old. I've been here a long time. There you go.
She's my history book. She's my history book. So I think that we put the things in here that I wanted about parental or family guardian inclusion. But I just don't think we're ready, to be completely honest. I think we're close. But what was your thought that I was going to say?
The one about parental recourse.
I was right. So,
Yeah.
Yeah. I just think, okay. I'm trying not to be on my soapbox, but I just think that we need to include parents as much as possible. They have a say in the promotion of their kids, and it's just not. It says it in here, but it's not being done with teeth. So I don't know how we can really enforce that. And I really push things that I have lived through. So I had my youngest had to repeat the kindergarten because we were going from private to public school, and it was kind of a mandate. I didn't know that I had options. I didn't know that I could go to a committee. So I just think that we need to have that be very, very clear, and maybe tie that into our engagement policies with our parental engagement policies. Point of clarification. Do we have any way to cross policies? So if you pull up the promotion policy and it speaks about engagement, is there any way that a parent can say, hey, this promotion policy, I'm looking at this, but it also ties into the engagement policy, blah, 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 or the equity policy? Like, is there a way to have them so that it's clear promotion also aligns with equity, also aligns with engagement in the policy?
We've certainly done cross references to policies before. We've incorporated by reference. We have if you're asking technically, we occasionally hyperlink policies together. That's particularly true, I'd say, with like the equity policy or the anti-racism policy. We've added references. Does that answer your question?
Yes, I'm just wondering how would because I just made the comment, hey, this needs to really tie into our parental engagement policy, which we passed all of those the last time. We spent a significant amount of time on engagement. But the parental piece, which is part of the engagement policy, is in here, but you wouldn't know that we have an engagement policy if you just looked at promotion. You wouldn't know that policy could be referenced in promotion. You also wouldn't know, like in our last policy with regard to summer learning, that it ties to the equity policy because it doesn't state that. So if a person just pulls that policy, is there a way to even say like at the end of the policy also applicable to policy number blah blah blah? Like, is there a way that people who pull our policies can say, hey, this is talking about engagement, or this is talking about LSDMCs, this is also this policy as well?
And it does that in the last paragraph with a couple pieces. It doesn't, not the ones you're specifically saying, but my point is that there
It's
is
kind of in there.
precedent for that. Well, no, not the ones you're talking about, but like referencing other policies.
Yeah.
Not uncommon.
Okay.
So we could, throw it in there. It's easy. Cool.
So that's it. That's my take on that. That's for being long-winded.
No, you're fine. No apology necessary. Ms. Bolton?
I would second all of that as well, but I think too that I like the ads that have been made. I think it does start to speak to that. I think too one of the issues we had was it seemed we needed the equal formalization because in one area, in one part of it was like a committee, and then another it looked like it was some sort of ad hoc. It was not clear who all was helping to make that decision. And I think, very frankly, more than the engagement piece, some of this is there probably almost needs to be, and I don't know who fulfills this role, more of an ombudsman on this, or a navigator, as we would say in health. Because that's really what happens is that parents may not only not have the knowledge, but be familiar with this, but they probably need an advisor. Who advises them? Is this the role of the counselor, being equally advisory to the family and about the kid, because that's their focus, is the kid. So I think there's probably a description of who is going to help navigate this, because when it's just like the principal, it can be pretty scary to families. So I mean, maybe just that there has to be a role to help a family and a child. And to me, I guess I would assume that it would be the council, but I don't know that. The other piece of it, I like it's that IEP model where you're going to have regular teachers and you're going to have special teachers and administrator and maybe even somebody outside. So just if we can formalize that, I think we're close.
I just want to also, it says audit team in here. So I didn't know who audit team is. It says it on the back page. And it also says subcategory.
District one, actually, yeah.
Well, I mean, I think it should be the parent champion. We have a district champion. Is that person? Audit team is not very clear. And then it also says that there would be a periodic review regarding disproportionate effect on a subcategory of CPS students. Who is that? Who is the subcategory?
Is it the subgroups that
it just says subcategory. So audit team and subcategory.
Yeah. So the first paragraph that relates to the audit team, again, that was an addition that makes this policy more consistent with the collective bargaining agreement provisions that do give some teachers a role in the process. It essentially, the collective bargaining agreement essentially says the principal does not get to override alone a teacher's decision about promotion or retention. If there's a disagreement between the principal and the teacher, it calls for this audit team. So that's a reference to the collective bargaining. I will say there's still some, I don't know about conflict, but this reads a lot different than the first paragraph of this policy, which says it's the board's position to socially promote. And I think that's what Board Member Bolton, I think, has correctly raised as, does that still represent the and then the last paragraph is, I believe, a direct reference to the board's anti-racism policy, which has observed or acknowledged that there is differences in the promotion and retention rates between subcategories of our students, and tries to avoid that.
So I think the only thing that I would add, and I said this before when we've talked about this policy, is as we're talking about whatever we're recommending to the board for consideration, we also have to think about the implementation. And so we do not currently have what I would call a student progression plan or a student progress plan so that it's consistent from place to place. And so once we actually have that in place as well, I think it takes away some of the ambiguity of who's doing what where. So if you know, once the policy is updated, then we marry that with the student progression plan essentially becomes the administrative guidelines for the policy, but adding more specificity. So whether that's, the number of courses that a student in third grade must pass for them to go to the next level, it takes away some of the need, if you will, to make so many decisions around what happens or what doesn't happen. Because if you have a position in place to start with, then it's not at the end that the teacher says, the student is passing, or the principal says something different, or the family's involved. So I think that will add just some clarity around this, because we don't have consistent guidance across the district about how it's done, much like we were talking about with summer school, right? And so once we do that, then I think that'll also add to where we're looking to get to.
So I just want to make one additional comment. The way this second to the last paragraph reads, it says that the parent is involved to the extent possible, to be made a collaborative effort between parents, teacher, and principal. Then if there's a need, the principal can request a district audit team composed of teachers and administrators. So there's no parent. I think there should be. Why is the parent not involved again? I understand what the intention was, but I'm just saying that audit team may need to keep the parent at the table, because the parent doesn't sound like they sound like they've been. We hear you, but then they've been removed. So that's just my 2 cents.
Is that not an issue that needs to be taken up, though, with collective bargaining and not this policy?
So it is a referral. The language is taken from the collective bargaining agreement.
That's why
in my experience, and I won't speak for CFT, but I don't think that provision of the contract is trying to write parents out of the process.
Sure.
And I don't think teachers would feel that way either. The main sort of issue that I think the collective bargaining agreement provision is trying to get at is that if a teacher makes a promotion or retention decision, the principal doesn't have a unilateral right to just change it.
I agree.
That I think can be honored while still ensuring a role for a parent in this collaborative decision process.
I completely agree with you. I would just add, sometimes things get taken literally. And when I'm not at the table, because I can be at the table because it's written that I'm at the table, then the inference can be to exclude me from the table. So that's the only thing that I'm saying, is that I don't want you to take the teacher or to adjust the collective bargaining unit at all. I think it should be there. I just think that audit team should be defined or stated that the parent is still involved, in addition to the teacher. And, I'm not saying to take anything away from it. I'm just saying add the parent.
I agree. Yeah.
Right.
2 quick questions or comments. I would like a definition of retention, because we see retention strictly as we're going to hold you back a year. And the reality is other school systems have found there's probation, or we moved partially forward, or what have you. So I would like to think would be helpful. The other piece of it is that audit committee. I see what Dr. Moffat's saying, but that audit committee, I'm hoping that that's also a committee that may not review particular cases, but it should be the one that is getting the information to the superintendent and whomever about overseeing or reviewing at the end of the year, mid-year, or whatever. Do we have some issues? Is there disproportionality in what's happening, just like with the discipline piece? And so it would be good to have a district structure that is not beholding to particular schools, but is reporting to the superintendent. Yeah, we've probably got some issues here. And maybe that falls under the equity piece or whatever. I mean, a lot of this audit stuff could be really very much kind of some infrastructure for the equity implementation.
Board Member Bolton, I just want to ask for clarification, because you said to define retention, and we don't have this on the screen for the people that are watching, but I just want to read it. It says Therefore, it is the policy of the district to promote students and address unfinished learning within the critical works of the grade rather than retain students. That, I'm thinking, is the definition that they're using for retention. Are you saying that
That is their definition for social promotion.
Oh, for social. Okay, so then,
But yeah,
well,
but
what I'm saying is that
it's in that paragraph
yes.
where you're really talking about retention.
So are you saying that you
joke.
want more? Okay, well, you said it. This is a joke. I was trying to be nicer and not say it in a nasty way, but I like how you said it, my historian. So we just need to add more teeth to that paragraph. Is that what you're saying?
There are options of retention. And of course, when we're going to have to retain someone, somebody has failed all along the way.
Yes.
And so it's not always just the kid or the family.
Well, I just wanted to understand.
Yes, you got it. You
Okay.
got it. That's I would like another definition for retention.
Gotcha.
And then that starts also getting into procedure. And I don't mean to do that, but holding a kid back is that's a devastating thing to do, but sometimes very necessary. But
Got it.
whatever. I look forward to whatever the administration's bringing back
Yep.
for the new committee.
Yeah. Whoever. Yeah.
Hopefully, we won't have
Those
to
poor saps.
revisit every aspect of this, which says a lot about people trying to stay in the committee.
So we will move policy 2440 and 5410 to January, whenever that meeting may be. I think that was a good start to the discussion, though. The only thing I'll add in closing is, and we didn't talk about it at all, and that's fine, but we can talk about it in January, whoever can talk about it in January. But we talked a lot about the retention piece. I think the promotion paragraphs are strange. I do. Well, and again, I think this just kind of goes in the whole, whole line of things with what's been said, but I do think we need to talk about with the board, obviously, the full board. Does this board still believe this? And if the, majority of the board still believes that you should just promote, then I don't think they do, but we do have to have that discussion, I think. And then, I don't know what comes first, chicken or the egg, promotion or retention definition, but obviously one is going to influence the other. So,
So can we talk about it at the CAL?
We can talk about it in CAL, we can talk about a full board meeting, but I don't think it's baked enough. I think it needs to come to this committee again in January. So we have something to give them, like we did with
Helps.
our policy on Monday. God, it seems so long ago. Whichever thing we talked about at the
Monday.
Yeah, at that meeting. Yeah,
The
with the full
days
board.
a year at CPS.
So January. I think maybe in January or in early February, probably talk about the full board. So Good job, y'all. So academic acceleration, proposed new policy number 5411. Of course, for the edification of folks watching and reminder for people here, this is language just excised entirely from the one we were just talking about, which used to be called promotion, academic acceleration, and retention. Now it says promotion, retention. We have academic acceleration here. And so looking at my colleagues, if anyone would like to go first, feel free. And to Ms. Bolton's point, I think we can probably maybe get closer to doing something with this one today than the last one. Maybe. Yep.
Broken apart.
Yep.
You're also looking at.
Yep. It's two different policies. Yeah. So 5410, this one, the one we were just talking about, would stay 5410, and then this one proposed new number would be 5411. So who wants to go first?
We just extracted this from the previous one, right? I don't. Again, I'm going to be pretty consistent with my thoughts in that we're not, even though this is about acceleration, I still think we need to have it defined that the parents are included. I'm going to be pretty consistent with that. This is a great thing when we're talking about accelerating, but I still think that when it says an acceleration evaluation committee will determine whether the students, who is that committee? Is that committee involved? Who is that?
It's down here at the bottom.
Where is that? Did I miss it?
Yeah.
I may have.
Upon referral, the committee, and the first thing is a parent or guardian. A, B, the list that begins A and B.
Okay.
Yep.
Well, Okay, I didn't, maybe I missed it because I wasn't thinking that that was the committee that does that, but I do definitely see this committee, so I gotcha. Okay, as long as the parent is included in there, I think I'm happy.
Ms. Bolton?
I like the definition of acceleration better than I like the definition of retention because it gives much more variety and much more range. So I'm cool with that. On the acceleration piece too, is there a, and maybe I'm missing this too, the student is not only referred, but can a student apply?
The student can be, as far as I understand, referred by the parent. Is that what you're?
Yeah, but can a student apply for acceleration?
So my understanding, acceleration generally applies to kids in K through 8. This is not, a high school student is going to be involved in credits at that point. So acceleration relates to either a whole get grade or a single subject where a student is going up a grade to participate with peers that are, in the next grade level.
I appreciate that, but my question remains.
Yeah.
I know a lot of 7th and 8th graders are more than able to do that. I know little people can actually know if they're kind of being a lot smarter or a lot more experienced or whatever than other. I just seems to me in student voice, it would seem that it should be an opportunity for a student. I also think that even the high school piece, I know that high school is about credits, but it's also about courses. There would, like, electives. I want to take an extra elective. I want to, besides get these credits to get out of here, I'd like to think that maybe I could take the anatomy course that maybe I didn't qualify for, meaning I didn't meet the certain criteria, but I'd like to apply for it. See what I'm saying? That the range of curriculum is such, and offerings is such, and hopefully it will always become more, and yet still consistent. I just think there's room for student voice and student individual advocacy, whether it's range of courses or whether it's moving a year ahead or what have you.
It's in there.
Yeah.
It is in there. It says students may refer themselves or a peer through a staff member.
Yeah.
So that part is in there on the second paragraph. So I'm with you, Yvonne.
Yeah, I just think that it's more than a peer appealing to a staff member. They're appealing to a staff member to get the staff member to refer them. Maybe.
Oh, I see.
So what I'm saying, it's like
self-referral.
Having lived with teenagers for 36 years, they'll tell you.
I'll tell you.
So
that would be something I would think that we could.
I definitely agree with you. I also don't see an appeal process. Or if let's say a parent says, I think my son or daughter is gifted and they should be promoted, and someone says no, or they say they self-refer.
So middle of the second paragraph or second page.
Okay.
After, let's see, after C,
okay.
Appeals may be made in writing to the superintendent within 30 days. Superintendent or designee shall review the appeal, notify the parent of the superintendent or designee's decision within 30 days, and then the superintendent's decision or designee's decision is final.
Okay.
So there is an appeal process.
Can they notify the student as well?
Sure.
And the other thing, it says students referred for accelerated placement on page 1, paragraph 4, will be evaluated in a prompt manner. Is there a timeline on that? We put a timeline on the other. Like, what's prompt? Prompt to me might be a semester or a year. Someone else's prompt might be 30 days.
Yeah, I think there's very specific timelines. Again, a lot of this comes straight from ODE in terms of their regulations,
Okay.
which Excuse me, which specific section are you?
It was on paragraph 4. Students referred for accelerated placement will be evaluated in a prompt manner.
Yeah.
So I'm just wondering, what is prompt? Is that a quarter? Is that a semester?
I believe if you go 2 paragraphs down, it's 45 days from the day of the referral. So
Okay.
there is a timeline that's built in there.
Okay. Got it. I do think that I agree with Board Member Bolton about students self-referring.
Mm-hmm.
But other than that, I think it's definitely a start.
So we will bring this back again in January. Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
Or
you could, or they could make those changes.
you think they're minimal enough?
I mean,
I think
what do
they-
you think? I think they
All
might
right.
be.
Unless you want to keep them together.
No, I don't care.
Maybe I misheard or was over-interpreting what the superintendent said about separation, or you're doing it one. Maybe the wisdom is like we did with the engagement. Maybe this is a package.
That's what I was saying.
That would probably help the board and the community and staff.
I don't think so. I mean, well,
Okay.
because I do feel that this is separate from promotion and retention. Promotion and retention are part and parcel of one another. This is
Okay.
not, I don't think.
Yeah.
I don't think this ever belonged
Okay.
in that policy. That's just my.
I agree with that.
Is that if that's okay? If that's okay, if y'all feel like you can do it, we'll put it before the board.
It's completely the will of the board.
Cool.
I think because it is talking about advancing students, whether we see it as promotion or not. It's talking about the advancement of students. I see that it's something that you discuss at the same time, even if you have 2 separate policies. So that was the reason that
Okay. Cool.
I kind of started with that.
Sure.
So, but of course, it's the will of the board.
Well, let's get it off our plate.
Yeah.
January's looking kind of heavy.
Yeah,
Let's get it off.
Let's just move that one if the pass it, and then we can have a robust conversation about the other issues, and at least have part of it done.
I just think that the retention piece is going to be a bigger discussion than the acceleration. People are going to be heated about that one.
Mr. Chair, can I ask the superintendent something?
Sure.
Also, programmatically, especially for career tech and what have you, I know that a few years ago, and I think it was Superintendent Mitchell was very interested in this. I think they even designed something to talk about where, we're asking our young people to choose their career or whatever kind of early. I mean, we're trying to expose them as early as possible, but choose this school because it's got something, and then 2 years later, they probably have another opportunity to choose to go someplace else. And they really started to really try to figure out how you could have 2 times at least where the kids could not just switch schools for the career piece or for whatever reason, but that we formalized it in order that it would work even in our planning. Is this acceleration is not that. That would be something else, right? That's the opportunities for choice. Or just okay, good. Then that's probably going to have to be something you all come up with. But okay, this is not that. Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Bolton. And thank you, General Counsel. Thank you, Dr. Moffitt. Individualized graduation progression. Now, this is another new one. We like to do important things here and come up with new progressive ideas, and I think this is one. So, proposed policy 5462. Any comments from council before we
No,
start?
only that I'm not sure I included the changes you made in the last meeting, including the semicolon that was added to this policy. And
There is
had
a
a lengthy
semicolon.
discussion about
I'll put
that.
it up on the screen. It has been.
I gotta get you a tea.
Semicolon.
Yeah,
We're gonna get
no,
a
I've got it
semicolon
up.
tattoo.
I'll have it up on.
You know what that means?
Does.
Semicolon. That you had a thought and you switched and did something else. So it's like you were going to commit suicide,
Oh
but
my
then you
God!
stopped
We don't.
and then you did something
I
else.
won't get you that T-shirt.
Well, yeah.
The changes made to the policy, which I'm not, again, I don't think were reflected in your packet, but the first paragraph, it was requested to add illness and injury as a reason that an individualized graduation plan would be appropriate. There was a request to ensure that if there's a need for such a plan, that it be discussed at the earliest opportunity. And then there was, with respect to the timing, I think Dr. Moffitt stated that the 30 days should run from the date of the referral. So that was added. And then, of course, the semicolon in the paragraph after that. The interview will determine the student's current progress toward graduation, noting how many academic years they have remaining to meet graduation requirements.
It doesn't even make sense without that right now. The whole policy
adds clarity. And
probably what, if we go back to the retention promotion policy, slap a semicolon somewhere there in the retention definition, will probably clean right up.
Probably would.
Comments from my colleagues? Thank you, Dan.
I have a real quick comment, and maybe it's an inquiry. Having sat through the at least part 2 of the OSBA policies, important policies up there. I don't know if you got that packet.
I got the packet.
Almost good. Thank you, Dr. Moffitt. I think it's like policy that there's an individual graduation plan that is recognized by the state. I mean, we were like thinking we were pretty cool, and it starts early. I swear that's one of the things that was referred to in that seminar. So it might be.
I think it goes along with the personalized learning path.
Okay.
Because that's in policy. And so I think that's where what you're referencing.
Okay.
Because there is policy that speaks to a personalized learning path for students.
And it's like a required.
Right. And this is really what it would be.
So is there a need to reference that to expand this from graduate? I mean, it's a graduation plan. Yeah, I think a little first grader. Let's talk about graduation. I think that'd be great. But the personal is something that is required by ODE or the state or somebody.
There's for at-risk students at risk of not qualifying for a high school diploma. It's in Ohio Revised Code 3313.617. And we can certainly reference that. And
I think it makes sense as long as we don't that horrible term.
Right.
But because it seemed pretty meaty as to what's expected, and I mean it puts a great burden on the district, rightfully so. So maybe if that could be part of it. I mean, and if I can, so I remember to say this right now.
Yeah,
I also heard in that symposium that the idea of first offer to charters may not any longer, if you can look that up.
Certainly, yeah. You mean for real estate?
Yeah. There's something that has changed. Oops, sorry. No, I gotta take this.
Go for it.
Thanks. Hello, really?
Yeah, we're going to move on while Ms.
Okay.
Bolton's indisposed, though, so let's.
Sure. We'll be able to really.
Yeah, so we're going to the next
move now.
policy.
Let's get the meeting over
Yeah,
with
we're
now.
done on that one. So let's go to the next one real quick. No, in all seriousness, yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if they did away with the first offer to charters because the governor of Ohio wants to do away with public school districts entirely. So it would make sense. It would just make everything a charter school. I got to get my dig in when every meeting, public meeting when I can. So in all seriousness, I do think Ms. Fulton's good. I think we're good on this. Dan, you understand? Yeah. You good?
Yep.
Okay. So the next one, weapons, and this would be inclusive of the threats, yeah, I assume. And so we got some research, it looks like, which is cool. No proposed policies because we don't, we're not quite there yet, but this is a great item to move forward. Ms. Davis for January's policy team, whoever they may be. So I'll look to y'all. Ms. Scott, is it Ms. Scott?
Yes, I mean, we were asked before, I'm sorry. We were asked to kind of look into developing a policy that had to deal with student threats in light of, some of the recent things that are just kind of happening within the country and how these things are kind of becoming more in the forefront. But also in March of 2021, the Ohio legislature passed House Bill 123 that actually requires schools to have a school threat assessment plan. So we're like kind of right in tandem
Oh,
with
good.
that. So
Good.
since its implementation, actually the deadline was by March 23rd. So we're actually right in line with that of getting of preparing and drafting.
Oh, look at you.
So Dan had included in the policy email kind of I guess it was Ohio School Behavioral Threat Assessment Model Policy and Protocol. So this was put forward by the Ohio Department of Public Safety. So it's pretty robust in that it gives us kind of it's more procedural as far as helping to draft the type of policy that would be kind of customized to our district. But there are some key things in here that the statute actually calls out. That the policy has to identify the types of threatening behavior, that it identifies the individuals who are threatening the behavior, establish some guidelines, and then also it requires that it be evidence-based as far as whatever kind of plan we put forward, that it's based on some type of national threat assessment or some other type of model of threat assessment that we're kind of developing our plans around. So I think the key big thing here is that it's a behavioral threat assessment. So there's kind of a step-by-step guide in the packet that kind of talks through being able to identify behaviors. And I know that we also spoke with our security department. They're also kind of aware of this House bill. So of course, this would be a multidisciplinary approach in drafting this policy, but just didn't know if there was any additional feedback from the packet, but we would use this kind of as a framework to start putting that in place.
Very cool. Thank you so much. And Ms. Bolton, just quick catch up. You probably aware of this, but we're right in line with what the state has been asking. We have something regarding this by March. So we're kind of on that. So Ms. Scott you heard me came in wrapping up saying we're going to use this, the recommended language or some of this we have to include, I guess, or all of it.
Exactly.
Okay.
Well, the packet, again, is more of like a process to get us to it says model policy on the front, but it's really to help kind of draft the policy. But a lot of it will come from the statute.
Cool.
5502.63, which I think was included as well.
All right. Yeah. Great. That's awesome. Thank you. The only thing I'll say now, and then I'll turn it over to my colleagues for comments if they have them. And I know this doesn't need to be said, but I will say it because I don't trust our state legislature because they don't like our kids. That whatever language we look at and borrow from them, that we ensure that our policy does not disproportionately impact Black students, which our state legislature would just as soon see happen. And so I know I don't need to say that to y'all. I realize that, so please don't think I am. I just need to be on the record saying we need to make sure that we don't take too much of a lead from them. So thank you. And then I got my colleagues.
You're good.
We're good. This will be a big thing next year. This will be good.
I think it's, we talked about, and I know this is a stupid way to go on it, but I was thinking with the information we get from the superintendent virtually on a daily basis, or reading the newspapers or what have you, as a person that was teaching before and after Columbine, that was one of those watershed events, and now we're in a completely different place as well.
Yeah.
And we talk about, and I'm completely supportive of the term restorative justice, but I don't know. We might have to start teaching restorative peace, or introduce peace as some sort of, in this post-COVID, horribly violent, hateful, mean-spirited time. This is not. I don't know how professionals go into the classroom every day and keep a stiff upper lip and embrace the kids as the children need to be embraced and that the teenagers need to be believed in. But something, it's not an assignment, but I would value the administration thinking about it. I mean, there is great curriculum called peace curriculum. There is, all kinds of stuff. And there's some of our schools are doing some pretty interesting work with conflict resolution and stuff. I just think there has to be, to the superintendent's vision regarding our district culture and our school culture, we might have to figure something out.
I don't disagree. I appreciate that, Ms. Bowman.
Well, it's bad.
It's different.
It's not. It's people are afraid of stuff, and they should be. You can't educate in an environment like that.
Do you have any other comments, Ms. Scott, or are you?
I don't. I mean, in addition to Ms. Bolton's point, actually, in the packet, it actually talks about part of threat assessment is having some creation of promotion of a safe school climate within the actual plan, as well as providing training to all stakeholders, including students. So.
Great, thank you so much, and thanks so much to Ms. Scott. I think this is appropriate time since this is our last policy committee meeting of this year. I've been fortunate to be chair for 3 years, and you have been the assistant general counsel for about 3 years. The whole time I've been chair.
For Dan.
My Lord, that's right, because my first meeting and then my next meeting was virtual. I had one meeting in person. That's right, and this whole time. And so Ms. Scott has been a part of drafting a lot of brand new policies. So thank you so much. And you got here during COVID. It was a weird time. We're like, we want vaccine policies. That's going to be easy. We want an anti-racism policy. That should be an easy thing to get started on. And you coordinated the community. You got people together, diverse stakeholders. And so this is yet another case where you're doing something new. So thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
No,
He's a great leader, Kathy.
no doubt. We're no doubt. We're lucky.
We
And
are lucky.
Yes, we are.
Dan?
Yeah, and terrific. She's been a terrific addition to the Office of General Counsel, and I'd be remiss not to recognize Kathy too, because with respect to the policy committee, Kathy Crable and the board staff do a lot to get us ready. It's a very paper-intensive sort of process to get ready for board meetings and things. So
thank you, Kathy.
It's great, and offers good insight on and lots of feedback on a lot of feedback on the policies. So.
Seriously, thank you. Yeah, thank you so much, Kathy. Maybe it's the holidays. I don't know. Maybe it's the last one of the year. I don't know what it is. I'm feeling kind of touchy-feely for some reason, but
oh my gosh,
I do. No, it's a lot, and oh God, we've done a lot though. We have this year, so awesome. Well, thank you, and thank you, Dan. Seriously, and we tease you, but you are a hell of a leader, man. You are. We are lucky.
And to add to you, can I?
Yeah, no, I wasn't done.
I'm catching some feels as well, but I do want to make sure that I say to the entire team, you all, this is my very first time working on committees. It's kind of interesting being with Mike and board member Morosky and board member Bolton, and you all have definitely helped to make that, to cushion the transition. So thank you to everyone. I sincerely appreciate you, and I want to make sure that you've heard that from me. Rob behind the scenes, our legal team, Jen, everybody, Miss Phyllis keeps me together. She reminds me to stand up when I'm getting a little crazy acting, and Rob keeps me looking good on camera. So I really, really, really appreciate it. It's really a team. I mean, we can't be great unless we have people underneath us supporting us to be great. So thank you. I appreciate it.
Everybody's good.
A little feely. It's the Christmas season.
You can go, Ms. Bolton.
I will say that, as I always say, your work of the board is done in committee. Mm-hmm. I know I have board members that disagree with me about that, but it really is. And I would say where the district has, through difficult few years, I think where the board, through the policy committee, much to the chagrin to some board members, of the real dynamic movement that this board has made during these difficult years has happened in policy. I mean, it's a very different tone in this policy, and appreciate the rudimentary way that we do it, the systemic way we've been doing it over a number of years, sort of the Bates approach, where you're going to do a certain number and throughout, then the quick response by legal and by administration in these rewrites or whatever. But this is, if you start to look back at the policies that have changed or been removed or evolved, this is a very progressive body of policy. It really is. And I think it's great. I don't know if it's all right or good or whatever. I think it is, but it is certainly progressive in a positive way.
So we can't leave yet because we have a question from.
From another board member.
Yeah.
Who?
Well,
Oh, yeah.
Board Member Weinberg is watching. Hello. She said we don't give her any love. We didn't give her any love. So hello, Mary. So but she had a question about something we talked about in
Oh, no,
policy.
I got it in other business.
Okay, I got you.
Yeah, we're good. Yeah. I will say, to Ms. Bolton's point, I don't know if everything we've done is right or anything like that. But the one thing that I do feel good about is I do believe over these past few years, we have really, really tried to get it right. And at least for me, that's kind of my benchmark to sleep well at night, is if I tried. I don't have any expectation to change much of anything, to be honest. I don't mean that in a cynical way. it's how I stay sane, quite frankly. And I think trying is really important. And I think we've tried really hard to empower y'all, the superintendent especially, to do your job. And so I'm grateful y'all here. I'm gonna stop, getting touchy-feely, but I do think it's no, I cry a lot. Life is sad, right? So I cry all the time. Anyway, no, I said I wouldn't be depressing. But it's important to say. I think it's important to say. We don't say it enough. We all work our asses off, and it's really, really hard, and it is extraordinarily thankless. And we do have really powerful forces. Where I say it a lot about the governor, and some people sometimes laugh, roll their eyes, but I'm very serious. We have very powerful forces working against our students, and it's not easy. And so it means a lot to be able to do this with y'all. So, but yes, we do have. Ms. Weinberg had asked, and I said we would talk about it in other business. Regarding a transportation issue and whether this belongs in this committee or not, I'm not entirely certain, but it may. So I think it's worthwhile bringing up. And the issue, if I may, and I'll just kind of go through this the way I understand it, is a parent had reached out. The child lives in a CPS school boundary, Hartwell. You all may know this too, but just to get it out in the open, attends a magnet school, North Avondale Montessori. Hartwell boundary, attends NAM. Parent was told, as they try to seek out a deviated stop, that they weren't eligible for transportation. Well, I'm getting to that. The problem, is sort of elucidated here, is that they're more than 1.2 miles away, and they don't attend their neighborhood school. They entered a lottery to attend the Montessori Magnet. The parent was given this as a reason, which is why she is confused. The parent is missing work due to picking up the child every day. So she enrolled her kid in the Boys and Girls Club, which is about 0.9 or 1.1 miles away from NAM, depending on which mapping site you use. Be very specific. I want to get this all right. So Ms. Weinberg, you're communicating with Dr. Moffitt to let her know if I'm getting it right. I think I am. I'm trying, like I said. The school has a bus. The school has a bus from the school that already takes kids there and drops them off. The parent has asked if the child could be given transportation and was denied again. I assume this time from the Boys and Girls Club. The mom is extraordinarily stressed out with this. So the questions are, why is the policy on students who attend Magnet Montessori regarding transportation? I assume that should say different. Why isn't the student able to ride the bus? And why isn't the deviated stop allowed? And I don't know, because to me, I feel like it would have been. So I don't know. I'm just relaying this, and I don't know if there's any updates.
I don't have an update. I have a question. I know that the only thing I can remember in policy is that we addressed the issue about transportation, encouraging magnets, because we would transport people that are leaving their neighborhood boundaries to go to magnets. We would provide that transportation, but we said we wouldn't do that neighborhood to neighborhood. And I wonder if that's what got communicated instead of what I thought the remedy was. There was some talk about maybe to be fair to the neighborhoods, you're transporting out a neighborhood to another neighborhood school. And of course, we're not looking to create even more bus routes. But I wonder if, I don't know how all that discussion got communicated to the administration. Or even if we took action on it. I can't remember, but I remember that part. I don't, and I know that there was an issue too in some discussion we had about, can you pick a kid up in one place, but drop them off in another place because that's where their parents are, that's where their after school. But I remember the discussion. I don't remember the result or the remedies that were determined, if any were, rather than just open discussion.
I think from my understanding, and I just asked her, can she put anything in the chat, but there's already a bus going from North Avondale to the Boys and Girls Club for those students.
Correct.
So it was to add him to that. And so that was where my confusion was, because if there's already a bus going there, why would he not be added to the route of kids that are already going there? But we did have a robust discussion about the disparate treatment in how we're busing kids to magnet schools, but we're not busing kids from neighborhood school to neighborhood school. And that was how the conversation started.
Is the mom having to, is the student not getting transportation from their house to the magnet?
That's what it sounded like.
Yeah,
which when I saw that, I was like, I don't know why that would. I said I'd pass it along. Seems like something that I don't.
Yeah, I
think we need to talk about.
There's so much
laws.
movement in all of this that it's,
Yeah.
So I think that we want to address two things, and we want to make sure that the information that we have is the most current.
Mm-hmm.
So if we're talking about the scenario that I'm most aware of, because this is a new ad that the student now lives in Hartwell's area. Because initially, if it's the same situation, we've had a lot of different situations. So I want to use it as a caveat, and I know that Board Member Weinberg is listening because we've discussed this as well. If it's the same situation, the child or the family did not live in the school district's attendance boundaries at the time that it came up. So the child was not eligible for transportation because they didn't live in the district's boundaries. So when the request came for a deviated stop implies that you are eligible for regular transportation. And instead of going to where you would generally go after school, you are requesting to go somewhere other than your regular bus stop. So if there's been a change at this point, I think we would have to discuss that change, because if it's the same scenario based on what was provided at that time, there was the family did not live in the attendance area. There was some discussion about what if they move, what if they, move to a different location, so forth and so on. And so I think to be fair, we would need to have the additional information, because I think that there's some additional background that goes along with this one. But just across the board, in terms of transportation, we don't provide transportation for students that do not live in the CPS attendance boundary. Right. We've not. And so even in this particular situation, I think the concern was, and I understand the concern was there was a bus that came to the location, that went to the Boys and Girls Club or whatever the after school program was. The child wasn't eligible for regular transportation, and so therefore they were not eligible for the deviated stop transportation. So that's how it rolled out in terms of getting to this point. Now, if there's a change now they're in a different area, we'd have to go back and readdress that, and maybe that's what they're referencing now. Maybe they contacted transportation, and because of the background, something else happened, but I would need more information to know that.
That makes
to follow up.
That makes more sense to me, because when I read it that this kid lived in the attendance boundaries, I was like, well, why would this kid get transportation? And Hartwell is certainly a precarious spot, because you can live like 10 feet outside the attendance boundaries if you're going to Hartwell or near Hartwell and think you're in the Hartwell's district or boundary. So I mean, is it okay to request some kind of follow up with his parent or through Ms. Weinberg?
Well, she just said, let the superintendent know. I will forward her all the emails from the parent. I think the mom always lived here.
There we go.
So I just think we need to get just clarification. If the child lived in Hartwell and is going to North Avondale,
They would get
they
transportation.
would get transportation.
Correct.
Normally.
Yes.
And then if there's a bus going from North Avondale Montessori to
Yes.
the Boys and Girls Club,
Correct.
they should be added to that bus.
Correct.
Okay.
If they live in the,
If
absolutely.
they live in it.
And the reason I say that with great certainty, is because a woman I used to work with in the community who was a community health worker had this same exact issue, but she lived in the thing, so she got the thing, the Boys and Girls Club.
Right.
So yeah. And that, yeah, Ms. Bolton. Yeah.
Just to expand it again, just the discussion was we were showing deference to magnets by being willing to transport from
That's
the
right.
neighborhood school
Yeah.
to a magnet, but we weren't, at least the practice was not previously
Yeah.
to transport from neighborhood
Yep.
to another neighborhood school.
Yep.
But we didn't say stop doing it to the magnet schools as
Right.
much as now it's you do both, okay? Or as everybody's trying to figure out what to do about next year and the following years, there's going to be stuff that we're going to have to be thinking about, and because the reality is, God forbid anybody believe this is happening now, but yeah, there'll be discussion about if you leave your neighborhood boundaries, will we be providing you transportation to either or any place? So all these things are very, very touchy, very controversial, to represent a different level of service or whatever. But certainly if the child lives in the district, they are able to be transferred to the magnet.
Magnets.
And if they are able to be transported to the magnet, they should be able to be transported, if that means that's where the parent
right.
wants them to go. But see, that's not always been the case either. It's usually special efforts that are made to have a pickup place. I live with my family. You have a different pickup place versus a drop-off place. That's a lot of bureaucracy. That's a lot of things that have to go into it.
But that was a deviated stop.
It's a
deviated stop.
Yeah, but to even getting that done usually takes 2 to 6 weeks
Mm-hmm.
to get that done. It's so there's many things as we try to figure out this. Have a good time.
I think the other thing that's really important is, and even though it's difficult, I think all of us have scenarios where we are looking for exceptions. And what happens when we start operating within exceptions, everything becomes an exception. And so it's important that I do think to Board Member Bolton's point, when we start thinking about transportation, it really concerns me that knowing what we're dealing with right now and the trajectory of where we're going next school year, it concerns me that we would do more to impact transportation or increase the number of students that need transportation at this point. And so if the goal is to have students in their neighborhoods, or we're talking about, walking ability or how close they are to school, to certain schools, there's a lot of work to just be done in that space. So we'll follow up because this may be a completely different scenario. I'm not sure that it is, but it might be a different one.
Well, thank you, Board Member Weinberg, if you're still there, for bringing this up. The transportation won't go away, so thank you for that, and look forward to resolution.
No. I just think we need to be consistent. We got to be consistent across the district. And I don't want exceptions, but I do want consistency and transparency to our families. And it's hard when there's a bus going there.
Yep.
That's my issue. Is there's a bus going there. So I think that the work is tough. I really appreciate everything that everyone's been doing, and thanks for this great year, guys.
Yeah.
Hey,
Great
thanks
year.
for joining the group. It's
Yeah.
good to have perspective. And I
No doubt.
appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Your participation and
Yeah.
membership in this group.
With no further business for this calendar year, this Policy and Equity Committee is adjourned.